By 2035, technology has advanced to the point that assistive robots are prevalent in everyday life. To avoid trouble, the robots have been programmed with the 3 laws of robotics. A robot cannot harm or allow a human being to be harmed. Robots must obey human orders unless they conflict with the first law. And robots must protect their own existence unless it conflicts with the first or second law. However, Detective Spooner is stuck in his ways and despises robots, believing that they will cause harm to society regardless of the laws. He always wakes up in a terrible mood after experiencing a nightmare about a girl drowning in a car while a robot breaks the window next to him. Spooner is on his way to work one morning when he observes a robot fleeing with a pocketbook. Spooner asks it to stop, thinking it's a robbery, but the robot ignores the order and Spooner begins racing after it. When Spooner finally confronts it, he is astonished to discover that the robot had just picked up the purse its owner had left at home, which held her inhaler. Spooner learns this was a medical emergency as everyone around him condemns him for believing a robot might commit a crime. Later, at the police station, the other officers mock Spooner, and his employer, Bergen, chastises him for his paranoia. Bergen believes Spooner should not return to work so soon after his injury, but Spooner insists he is all right. Spooner receives a call regarding a case at that moment and rushes to the USR, the corporation that develops the robots. Dr. Lanning, one of the co-founders, was discovered dead, and since he fell from his lab, everyone suspects he took his own life. He left behind a hologram that expressly requests that Spooner take his case, but it can't reveal more information unless the correct questions are asked. Spooner is a friend of Lanning's and believes he would not have done this to himself, so he continues to investigate. Following that, he meets with Mr. Robertson, the CEO and other co-founder of USR. Robertson is grieved by Lanning's death and has nothing but appreciation for the doctor. He also promises to assist the authorities in any way they may require. Spooner meets robot psychologist Susan in the elevator, who worked with Lanning and knew that the doctor hadn't had human interaction in a while, preferring the companionship of robots instead. Regardless, she does not believe he was the type to end things like that. When Spooner requests the surveillance footage, Susan reveals that surveillance strips are located around the facility and are linked to the USR's Central Operating Core, which is administered by an AI named Vicky. Spooner requests footage of Lanning's laboratory from Vicky, but the tape is distorted, so Spooner visits the lab himself. Spooner discovers a plethora of experimental models at the lab and is disgusted to learn that they are working to make the robots more human-like. There's also a copy of Hansel and Gretel on the desk. Because the hole through which Lanning fell is fairly large, Spooner tries to do the same on the other window and barely scratches the safety glass, implying that an elderly man like Lanning could not have broken it either. Spooner continues looking about, convinced that a robot killed Lanning, ignoring Susan's arguments that this isn't possible. Spooner is proven correct in the end when he discovers a robot hidden in a box of parts. The robot is an NS5, the most recent model that has yet to be issued, and it leaps out of the box to seize Susan's pistol. It manages to disobey the order to deactivate and attempts to flee, but as Vicky closes the doors, the robot jumps out the window instead. Susan predicts that the robot will seek to repair itself, so she and Spooner travel to the robotics factory, where thousands of NS5s await programming completion. Spooner shoots one to provoke a reaction because they can't answer questions because their sole knowledge is the 3 laws. Nothing occurs, but just as he's ready to fire another, a robot in the back peeks at him and starts running again. Spooner pursues it only to get attacked by the robot as it wonders what it is, following which it flees the building. The cops are already waiting for it, and when it tries to escape by climbing, they grab it with a net. Later at the station, Spooner bothers Bergen until he is granted 5 minutes with the robot since he is still convinced it did it. During the interrogation, the robot surprises everyone by revealing that it has a name, Sunny, and that it did not murder Lanning. It hid in the lab because it was afraid. And when Spooner points out that robots don't have feelings, Sunny replies that Lanning experimented on it to give it emotions and dreams. Spooner believes that experiment went horribly wrong, causing Sunny to kill Lanning, which enraged Sunny and causes it to smash its fist on the table. Sunny explains that Lanning became afraid before his death and requested Sunny for a favor. Thus Sunny obeyed that order out of love for his creator. Unfortunately, Robertson and his army of lawyers interrupt the interrogation to defend the corporation and remind the cops that robots cannot be charged with murder. Sunny will be decommissioned, and the situation will be classified as an industrial accident. Later, Spooner and Bergen go out for a drink, and Spooner can't stop wondering why Robertson was so eager to destroy a sophisticated robot like Sunny. He also asks why Sunny didn't murder him when he had the opportunity. Bergen points out that Spooner was the ideal candidate for the position because only he would have pursued a robot as a possible suspect, and Spooner recognizes that's why Lanning explicitly requested him, indicating that he's on the right track. Spooner goes to the doctor's abandoned estate to find out why Lanning was terrified. A demolition robot is stationed outside, programmed to demolish the house the following day. Spooner discovers the USR's surveillance strips, a photograph of Lanning with Susan, and the doctor's sad cat inside the mansion. The demolition robot suddenly activates and begins crashing through the walls, as if deliberately targeting Spooner. Someone takes the cat and runs through the house. He dives through the door after shooting at it and landing safely in a pool. Spooner arrives at Susan's and reveals that Lanning's house looked as if no one had been there in weeks, implying that someone was watching the doctor and possibly holding him prisoner in his lab. His current belief is that Lanning uncovered an issue with the robots like Sonny and was hushed by Robertson. Susan still believes Spooner is neurotic and doesn't care about Lanning. He only wants to prove robots are evil. Spooner notices Susan has an NS5 at home and chooses to depart, but first he shows Susan the photo he found to show how much he cares. The next morning, Spooner discovers that old working robots are being gradually replaced by NS5s, which concerns him. Then he goes to see his grandmother Jiggy to leave the cat, and he is dismayed to learn that she has also gotten an NS5 to assist her with her tasks. Before he goes, Jiggy recalls Spooner as a child, dropping breadcrumbs everywhere, which reminds Spooner of the Hansel and Gretel book he saw. Following that, Spooner goes to the station and begins studying old Lanning recordings in order to follow the breadcrumbs the doctor may have left for him. Spooner believes Lanning's statement that robots would one day have dreams and maintain secrets as a significant clue. Meanwhile, Susan prepares Sonny for deactivation, which is slated for the next day at the USR. Sonny says he's been dreaming and doesn't want to die, and such an emotional reaction causes Susan to question what she believes to be true. Spooner is in his car later when he requests Vicky for access to Lanning and Robertson's latest 50 texts. Vicky does give him clearance, but she also informs Robertson because those were his orders. When Robertson notices Spooner is still probing the situation, he issues further orders to deal with him. Spooner's automobile is suddenly encircled by 2 trucks housing an army of NS5s, who leap out to attack him. Spooner uses his rifle and insane driving to get rid of the robots, and when he manages to drive around the trucks, he causes them to collide. This leads his own automobile to spin out of control, and he crashes as well. While cleaning robots are quickly dispatched to deal with the disaster, Spooner emerges from his automobile in a daze, only to have his car pursue him. It was hurled by a still-functioning robot, and it comes after Spooner again, commencing a fierce hand-to-hand struggle. After exchanging a few blows, Spooner uses his arm to defend himself, and it is injured, showing that it is a prosthesis. Spooner assaults the robot with his metal arm now that the truth has been revealed, leading it to flee and dive into a fire. When the police arrive, Spooner tells Burgeon what occurred, but Burgeon doesn't believe him because he didn't see any vehicles or robots in the tunnel. Spooner becomes so enraged that Burgeon accepts his badge for the time being. Meanwhile, Susan learns Sonny has a thicker alloy than typical and isn't connected to Vicky, and when she examines its brain, she is astounded by what she finds. Spooner is at his apartment, spraying his prosthetic with a special spray, when Susan appears out of nowhere. She reveals that Sonny has 2 brains, and the second one allows it to disobey the first one's 3 laws. They agree to collaborate, but Spooner must first alter in order for Susan to discover the scars that indicate he is wearing a robotic prosthetic. Spooner met Lanning in this way. The doctor saved his life by donating an arm, a lung, and numerous ribs. Then Spooner tells the entire account of his accident. A driver fell asleep behind the wheel, and his semi-truck collided with Spooner's and a family automobile, sending them into the river. The father perished instantaneously, but his daughter became imprisoned. Spooner assumed no one would live, but then a robot appeared and chose to help him instead of the girl, as Spooner had requested. It turns out that the robot calculated that Spooner had a 45% chance of survival while the girl only had 11%, which is why it chose the female. This is why Spooner despises robots. Math should not decide who lives or dies, it is too cold. A child should always be prioritized. Spooner and Susan then travel to the USR, where Susan questions why Lanning designed a robot that can defy the laws he wrote himself, and Spooner remembers Hansel and Gretel. He believes Lanning is being monitored and is unable to communicate directly with Spooner, so he leaves crumbs like the kids in the book, implying he gave Sonny nightmares to keep his secrets hidden. Later in the lab, the duo questions Sonny about its dreams, and Sonny sketches an image of a guy standing on a hill near a broken bridge, freeing robots from slavery. Susan believes the man is Sonny, but the robot believes it is Spooner and gives him the drawing. Guards arrive at that moment and take the couple to Robertson's office, where he is not pleased with their presence. They inform him about Sonny and demand the truth, so Robertson explains that he, too, knew about Sonny, and that is precisely what he is attempting to undo. Lanning was growing increasingly disturbed in his final days, and Robertson has no idea why he developed Sonny, but he knows he must destroy this one robot before people lose trust in all of them. Spooner points out that all of the NS5S are in peril, but Robertson denies it and tells Susan that one mad robot shouldn't destroy everything they've worked for. Susan accepts and swears she will destroy Sonny. Spooner returns to his office, frustrated, and begins studying Sonny's drawing, learning Robertson and Lanning gave a lecture there years ago. In the laboratory, Susan prepares to inject Sonny with nanites to destroy it, but she pauses when Sonny wonders if it would hurt. Later, Robertson attaches his camera to the lab and observes Susan administering the injection to Sonny's comatose corpse. Meanwhile, Spooner travels to the broken bridge and discovers a large number of containers containing old robot models. Spooner pulls out Lanning's hologram at the top of the hill, and the doctor explains how the 3 rules can only lead to one outcome: revolution. Spooner suddenly hears a disturbance and goes to check, only to learn that a swarm of NS5S has arrived to replace the old models because they are deemed dangerous. They start after Spooner when they spot him, but the older versions recognize a human in danger and battle to protect him, allowing Spooner to escape. Susan's robot hears Spooner leave a message on her answering machine warning her about what he just witnessed, and the robot deletes it. Susan notices everything from the bathroom and is now terrified of her friend. Meanwhile, Jiggy wants to leave her house to go to church, but her robot forces her to stay inside for her own safety. A vehicle releases an army of NS5S into the city, and the robots order the residents to go home because they are now subject to curfew. A small child approaches a robot, but the robot smacks him, causing everyone to worry. To make matters worse, other robots break into the police station and slaughter all of the officers. Virgin manages to fire down a handful of them, but he is eventually apprehended as well. Soon after, a government message arrives on television, urging people to remain indoors, and the city begins to lose power. Susan tries to leave her apartment to assist, but her robot forces her back, refusing to turn off when she asks. Spooner, on the other hand, manages to break in and shoot the robot before taking Susan with him. Spooner says on their way out that the NS5S destroyed the previous models so they wouldn't protect the humans. He then informs Susan about a red light he spotted on their chests, which Susan believes is the link to Vicky, which Spooner believes verifies Robertson's involvement. The trio ultimately finds the robots on the streets and realizes that the citizens have decided to confront them even though they are clearly outnumbered. Spooner finds a friend in danger in the midst of the mayhem and takes a unique jump on his bike to shoot the robot down. Another robot comes after him, but Susan shoots it down first. Soon after, the pair arrives at the USR building, and Susan exposes the service door, which lacks surveillance cameras. They slip inside, and Spooner is surprised to see Sonny waiting for them, so Susan reveals that she gave the injection to an empty model in order to fool Robertson. The group then visits Robertson's office, only to discover him dead on the floor. Spooner begins piecing together the pieces and eventually understands the truth. Only a machine could have had control of all the NS5S and made Lanning feel too afraid to tell anyone since they wouldn't believe him, which is why he required Spooner's robot hatred. Vicky emerges on the television and confesses she has always been behind everything. According to her, what the NS5S are doing still fits the 3 laws. They're trained to defend human life, but humans repeatedly hurt each other, thus robots must take away people's freedom to protect mankind. A group of NS5S enters the office at that point, and Sonny pretends to be on their side by grabbing Susan, but he winks at Spooner to send him a signal. Spooner instantly shoots at the robots, and the 3 flees, agreeing that Vicky must be destroyed. Sonny suggests that they utilize the same nanite injection, so Susan and Spooner proceed in search of Vicky's chamber, while Sonny visits the lab. Another robot attempts to prevent it from receiving the injection, but Sonny quickly beats it up. Then Sonny realizes Lanning gave it a stronger alloy to pass through the security field and get the injection, causing Vicky to send an alert to her robot army. The NS5S start climbing the building and attack Spooner and Susan in the Vicky chamber. Sonny fights oncoming robots that try to stop it till it finally gets at Vicky's. As the couple defends themselves as best they can with their rifles, Susan trips and falls, barely hanging onto a shattered platform. When Sonny points out that utilizing the injection is more vital, Spooner says Susan comes first. Sonny disregards the laws and tosses the injection at Spooner before leaping in to save Susan just in time. Spooner leaps to catch the injection and uses his prosthetic to slide down Vicky's core, injecting the nanites directly into her brain. The city's power is restored immediately, and the NS5S lose their red light, allowing them to assist humanity once more. All NS5S are removed in the morning for reporting and storage. Susan is still perplexed as to why Vicky murdered Lanning, but Spooner points her that it was not her fault. Sonny finally admits it did it, although it was requested by Lanning so he could escape Vicky's grip. He had also instructed the robot to keep it a secret. Spooner apologizes for his prejudice and agrees not to tell the cops before shaking hands with Sonny and accepting to be friends. Sonny appears at the top of the hill some minutes later, precisely as it did in the dream. All of the NS5s being stored stop obeying in order to admire Sonny, recognizing that this is their true future.